You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad who has been living in my 1997 Ford van for more than a year. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, I just wanted to pop in here at the beginning real quick to give you a heads up that the audio quality of this particular interview is a little hit or miss, especially towards the end. I have done my best to clean it up, but there are some spots where the audio drops a little bit or has a delay, and I apologize for that. I am taking measures to improve on the audio quality of future interviews. I think the content is incredibly important, and I think Candace has a lot of valuable wisdom to share, so I hope that you will listen through and find the nuggets of gold and listen through to the end. Thank you so much. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deliberate Living podcast. This week I have Candace. She just moved into her van fairly recently after transitioning out of a career as a police officer for 7 years. And I am completely enamored with her Instagram feed and her beautiful van and her beautiful dog and her beautiful soul. So I hope you guys get a lot out of this episode. Hello, Candace.
Hi.
For everybody who doesn't know you, can you give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got to where you are?
Sure. So my name is Candice, at Candyss Love on Instagram. I started out in the military for 10 years. Then I transitioned to policing for 7 years. But the past 5 years, I've been on a very intentional spiritual journey, which has caused me to do a lot of self-reflection, a lot of diving deep into what my soul's purpose is. And so through that, really just being honest with myself and giving myself permission to do exactly what the hell I want to do, which is live the way that I want to live my life and not the way that society has programmed me to live it. Which is having a child by a certain age, having a specific career by a certain age, having a family, all of those things that we feel that society is kind of just jamming down our throat. And one of the things that I wanted to manifest was a van of that type of freedom, having that type of freedom. And recently I was able to get one. And my mom actually bought me a van for Christmas because she knew how passionate I was about traveling. I've always traveled the world, but in a van was different because it would become something that was my own, like my own home. So 2.5, 3 months ago, my dog and I, Cleo, we set out, and now we're still on the road.
I love that story. What an excellent Christmas gift.
Oh, perfect Christmas gift. I was so surprised.
Before you moved into the van and took the leap, you said that you've been very intentional about the spiritual growth path that you've been on, and you were really passionate about moving into the van. That's how your mom knew what a perfect gift to get you. When Christmas morning, you open up a bag of keys and you find that you have a van. Was any part of you like scared or nervous? Like, oh shit, now I have to do that. Or were you just all excitement all the way?
I was all excitement all the way because I had been, and it's so funny, I had been intentionally trying to manifest that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I had never explained to my mom that I wanted to live and travel in a van. Never. So for her to say, well, why don't you get a van? I knew that was, the universe coming full circle and giving me what I've been praying and asking for. So I was excited. As soon as she said that, I was doing my research on vans. And I didn't think twice. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love that. It sounds like it was such a split second kind of like, oh, well, obviously that's the next thing I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it came full circle. I knew that was the next step.
Had you already decided to leave the police force, or did that come after, or how did that go?
So I had been manifesting for the past year and a half, 2 years on leaving the force. And so it was, policing didn't fulfill my soul at all, but I needed more freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That is the part that just really drives me in life, is more freedom, more freedom, more freedom. And not just the freedom, the state of mind, but having the power to have my own time, to decide what I want to do with my own time. So I actually manifested a new career outside of policing a year ago.
Okay.
So it was so funny because I make New Year's resolutions every year. Me, my mom, and my best friend, we sit down every year and make them. And we make them on purpose to be able to look back and be like, hey, we did this, we did this. And so the van was on my list last year, and a new career were the two biggest things, really just manifesting freedom, not even so much a new career.
Right.
And so I ended finding a different career, which was a criminal justice instructor, which gave me more of a teacher schedule.
Yeah.
So my first year, I had like summers off, and had more time with the van. So I was already in the process of figuring out how to get out of the police force. That came before the van, well before, but it was still on the list with van life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my earliest episodes of the podcast talks about the 4 different kinds of freedom that there are, that I've gleaned from my work with my clients. And they are the freedom of location, the freedom of time, the freedom of creativity, and the freedom of finances. And it sounds like for you, the most important ones are the freedom of location and the freedom of time. Now you can go anywhere and you have your own schedule and you don't have to abide by anybody else's rules.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That freedom of time, even though, time does not exist, in the 3D realm, it definitely does. And there's so many people who dictate what we get to do with our own personal time. It's really like a form of prison, and going to work and then looking outside and it's all pretty, but you can't go outside only on your lunch break. Like, that feels like entrapment. So, yeah, manifesting that freedom. I love that freedom of time and freedom of location for sure.
Yeah. So I know you've only been in the van for a hot minute now, but you've done quite a bit of traveling. And I mean, you've fully immersed yourself into this new lifestyle that you've manifested. What has that experience been like for you? Has anything been surprising, better or worse than you expected it to be, or how is that going?
Well, I think what I did was I got excited. Like, well, I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to go to that place. And right after that, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
And I am tired as hell.
Yep.
I am sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited. And I'm sure a bit of ego was in it too, because it feels good to see people like, oh my God, you're here. Oh my God, you're there. But on the back end, I'm really, really tired and I'm overdoing it and overwhelmed.
Yep.
So that was the part that I did not think about. And I'm the type of person that I cannot thrive unless I'm in alignment with myself. I have to be still. I'm not a person that can constantly move and still thrive and be in alignment. So that has been the part that I have been working on balance. And I'm a Libra. So balance is not my forte. It's like that I'm constantly working towards. So that was the biggest aha moment in my van, is to take my time, sit still in one location, marvel at it, take it in, appreciate it, and see what I can learn from it, what knowledge or wisdom I can learn from that one location. And instead of trying to constantly get to the next place, the next place, the next place,
Yeah.
being in the present moment. That's actually a huge lesson too, because a lot of times we live our whole lives thinking about the next thing, the next thing, the next big thing that's going to make us happy or fulfilled.
Yep.
When that fulfillment is already present in the present moment. And so I had to learn that the hard way. I was at the Golden Gate Bridge, girl, and broke down crying because I was so tired. Yeah. I was actually recording a video too. I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And then I just started crying. I was like, I need to take a nap. I'm sleeping.
I've done the same thing. The first year that I was in my van, I did a lot more travel, and it was very like, I'm going to work a little bit, drive a little bit, work a little bit, drive a little bit, work a little bit. And I made my way like up and around and all over. And then this year I've actually been like taking advantage of those like 14-day stay limits, you know, like I'm going to sit here and like enjoy it and like spread out. And it's a totally different ball game, and there's pros and cons to both. Like if you sit still too much, you'll go crazy. That's why we live in vans. But if you go, then you're gonna be so tired.
Yes. Yeah, I had to learn that the hard way. And then I had a few experiences that weren't the best. So it kind of made me more, I don't want to use the word fearful, but it's past being aware of like places that I sleep overnight. And because I am solo, I've been trying to figure out safe places where I don't have to constantly pay for like camping,
Yeah.
or like park or something like that. So that's been like maybe one of the things I would say is it's been difficult to figure that part out so far.
Yeah, that can be a challenge. After we're done recording, I'll send you some of the apps that I use personally. I have paid for camping one time in the last year and a half. But I have camped in a few places where I'm like, maybe I wouldn't do that again. It's part of the learning process.
For sure. No, yeah, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll send those over, and for anybody listening who wants them, I'll put them in the show notes as well. Can you give us a breakdown of some of the biggest pros and cons that you've noticed in your first few months?
So I'm gonna start with pros. The biggest pro is my time. I'm on my own time. I get to plan, and that's one thing I love. From when I was traveling via plane, I love planning like my destinations. In Peru, I love to brag about this. So in Peru, I did a month, and I planned a retreat. I had to use a plane. I had to use a train. I had to use a horse. I had to use a boat. All of those different things. So I love being able to plan my next destination and the ins and outs. So that was the main pro, other than my freedom. Also, really being able to learn my dog more.
Yeah.
I've always loved animals and been in tune with their personalities. Mm-hmm. But now it's a different type of connection that we have. And I really know like what she's feeling. And that's been interesting to watch. And it's been interesting to watch her take on like the protection role. Mm-hmm. Like, very protective. Like, even at nighttime, she doesn't even sleep. She sits in the front seat and just watches the whole night.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's really interesting watching that. That's been a pro because I'm sure it's grooming her in her protection skills as well.
Yeah.
Another pro has been doing it by myself. Like, it's a big deal to have to, you know, bring 12 gallons at a time of water in your van and be struggling outside and it's hot and you're doing it alone. If you get into any type of jam in your van, you're doing that alone. It's really teaching me to trust myself, to trust my intuition, to listen to my intuition. So in the midst of trusting myself on the road, I'm creating a deeper bond with myself that I didn't have before. And also, I was telling my friend that when I drive, I always kind of drive without music. I just give myself a opportunity to detox from the distraction.
Yep.
And instead of taking on the emotions of the song and the frequency of the song, just paying attention to what my natural frequency and emotions are, like what's coming up. And the more I drive, the more I get to observe how I actually think. And I've caught myself a few times like, whoa, you think like that? Like, where did that thought come from? And so it's so interesting. Wherever you go, there you are. And the quieter it is, the longer the drive, you are really sitting with yourself. And everything that you need to process, it could be in a therapy session with a therapist. It's now coming up just because you have all that time to drive on the road. And you get to really process it and grieve and feel whatever it is that you need to feel or that I need to feel. And I think that's very powerful. Like, that's the hugest pro, is that I get to do that. And then the con, I would say, the biggest con, I would say, is just the certain times when you don't feel safe. There typically isn't anything that you can do to feel safe unless you change the environment.
Yeah.
And your mindset, but it's still for getting to an environment where you feel a little bit safer. That would be my biggest con. Is what I learned was, when I'm doing my research, I had a situation happen when I went to Oregon. And I was driving to visit a friend from Peru, to visit him and his wife. And they're in Portland. But before you get to Portland, you have to go through the back towns. And so going through the back towns, like 4 hours into it, the town that I was staying in at the campground, as soon as I drove in, I saw a Nazi flag. I saw Confederate flags everywhere. Trump flags. Not that that means anyone's racist, but those all together, I've never been so uncomfortable in my life. And I mean, really fearful. And the con in that situation was, I didn't realize that I had to be that aware. Like, that was never awareness that I had to have about, like, my skin color.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't an awareness that I had to ever just, pay attention to. We are privy to the information that racism is there, it's prevalent, it's still going on. But even though it's been people in my community's experience, it had never been mine. And so that taught me was, I have to be more mindful of how I maneuver in places, because no matter how much of a free spirit and beautiful spirit I have, based on my skin color, I'm still not accepted in certain places. And so when I plan my travel, I have to be mindful of the small towns that I go into and do my research. What is their racial history? What is the population? Is it a mixed population? Are they open to other people coming into their towns? Because seeing 3 Nazi flags is a clear indication that they are not welcoming anyone else into their town. And so that was a huge eye opener for me, that you have to do your research and be mindful of when you have to stop for gas, or if I needed help at any time. I want to make sure that I'm going through towns that are more welcoming, because I realized that there was a road that I took, which was a scenic route, but had no cell service. So if I would have known that, safety-wise, I would have opted for the road that sucked, but I had the cell service. So if anything were to happen, I would be safer. So that the biggest con is like figuring out those safety things as I go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only con, outside of me having to like clean out my van every single day because I have a German Shepherd that sheds like 3 times a day. And as soon as I clean up, she jumps in the front seat and she shakes. Yep.
Mine does the same. Mine's not a German Shepherd. She's a little smaller, but yeah. She, especially now that it's getting really hot, she's just shedding nonstop. Yeah. And I mean, luckily in a small house, it takes like 30 seconds to sweep it.
For sure. That is true. So yeah, those have been my only 2 cons so far.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear about the unwelcoming
demonstrations
and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. That was a pretty traumatic experience. Couldn't really figure out how that was invited into my reality, other than just to teach me the awareness. Yeah. But what's greater is I was so upset and sad and scared and angry that I even had to experience that to begin with. And so I left, and I had to drive 4 hours out of Oregon at night, and I can't even see at night, but that's how uncomfortable I was. And so drove 4 hours out of Oregon and stopped at a Walmart that actually allows RVs. And when I stopped, I had to get out of my van for something, and this lady came up to me on a motorcycle out of nowhere. And she was just like, hey, how are you doing? And the sun's going down, I don't feel comfortable at this point. I still have that fearful energy on me. And she comes up to me and she says, I'm not sure where you are in your spirituality, if you're religious at all. She said, so I don't want to offend you. She said, but God just told me to give you a reminder that there are some bad people out here. She said, but there are way more good people. And no matter what happens and no matter what you experience, you never allow those bad experiences to tarnish your heart. And she gave me $300 and drove off in the middle of a Walmart parking lot.
Wow.
Lord, and I broke down crying, like, while she was telling me once she said that there are bad people out here, but you don't allow that to tarnish your heart, I just broke down crying, and I was like, yes, ma'am. And the craziest thing too is we're both from Houston, Texas.
Somewhere in Washington or California or Idaho or one of those spring.
Yep, both from Houston, Texas. Just random. Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. That's a very pointed message from the universe.
For sure.
I think that that's awesome. I think that, maybe you needed to, have that awareness before you needed the awareness. And ideally you don't necessarily need it, but it's a good thing to have just in case.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
one thing that when people are like, your trip looks so beautiful, your trip looks so beautiful, but how my journey operates is very weird moments. But the beautiful part for me is the lessons on the back end.
Yeah.
So it would be like a horrible experience for someone to make them say, oh my God, no, like I'm not going to travel solo. It's just about the awareness, but imagine what all comes after the fact. Like my journeys are so beautiful. It doesn't just include beautiful pictures on Instagram. Yeah, the beach is great, but when something unfortunate or something that I would prefer not to happen during my regular day happens, but then I still get the lesson from it, I choose to receive the lesson from it.
Mm-hmm.
That is beauty in my trip, because you really get to show people exactly what you want them to see on Instagram. And you really have to choose, I have to choose the perspective that all encompassing everything is what makes the experience beautiful, because the picture took 5 seconds. They don't get to see you getting there, you being hot, all the 50 million pictures you have to take to get a cute one, the driving. They don't get to see all of those things, but the whole process, the sketchy encounters, the whole process is what makes the experience beautiful for me.
Yeah. I've had a very similar experience in being a solo traveler with a dog, in that, people ask me what's been the best part so far, what's been the biggest lesson so far, and the answer is always like, my favorite part is knowing how capable I am. And every day I'm faced with, more opportunities to, remind myself that I'm fully capable of taking care of everything. And also I get to know my dog better each and every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
It can be really overwhelming sometimes, but then, at the same time, like, people always ask, like, well, what if something happens? What if you're out on a road that you don't have service on and you get a flat tire? Like, well, then I'll deal with it, because I won't have a choice.
Exactly, because you don't have a choice. I mean, we can always choose the unhealthy perspective of, just that being like a horrible day, or you can choose a healthier perspective, like things happen. Let's get into the solution. As long as I'm able to get into the solution, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's normal. I mean, you can get a flat at home and your phone could be dead. Still gonna have to figure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you've been on the road for 2 to 3 months, and about a year beforehand, you manifested a career change from policing to criminal justice instructing. Is that what you're doing now, or has COVID shifted things, or how are you sustaining this adventurous, beautiful growth life you have?
So COVID has shifted things where everything is online. I'm not complaining about that. So that's made it much easier to just go. The only thing that I need is, cell service to get online and, make my plans, my lesson plans, and teach and do what I need to do. So yeah, that's pretty much been it. Beforehand, I was just, on the teacher schedule. It was all like that, completely online.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Does living in a van cost more or less than you thought it would?
So, at this point, because I had the experiences that I did with safety, finding free camp spots, I have not. It's not that I haven't been able to do it. It's just the ones that I have found have been in sketchy places.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spent money on campsites for the safety aspect. Outside of that, say if I had campsites that were free, I would spend way less money.
Right.
With the campgrounds, I did spend quite a lot of money on campgrounds, but still saving a lot of money as well. And that's just because that was my choice. I wanted to feel safe, especially also because I'm still getting with understanding what of those different types of things, just figuring out, what works best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that I had to constantly remind myself is what works best for me. And even with that, though, I'm still saving a lot of money. The biggest is only gas because I'm going from literally state to state to state. I'm moving. So if I were in a place like California and had multiple places that I could camp out, sleep, that would be much easier. I wouldn't have to pay for camp spots, and I wouldn't have to always pay for gas because I'm not going from state to state. So that's one thing I want people to know. If you are going from state to state, then yeah, gas is going to be a lot different than if you're in, one state and going through the cities.
Yeah, that fast travel, that see a new place every day travel costs more money for sure.
Yeah. Yes, it does, for sure.
Do you know what your future plans look like with the van? Do you have any idea of like where you want to go or how long you plan on being in it?
So I don't. I try to just allow wherever my spirit guides me. I try to just allow it. And my mom is like, "You need to come home. You need to come home." And I told her, I'm gonna go. And when my spirit tells me that it's time for me to go home, sit down, and recoup, then me, my man, and my dog will be back. But there are many more places that I want to go. But I'm just gonna listen to my spirit and to my intuition, and then I'll decide. Yeah, but there's places I want to go. I wanted to go to Baja while I was in California. And forgot my passport. Yeah, forgot my passport. Mom was like, "Yes, you don't need to go down there anyway. You need to come home."
Yeah, my mom does the same thing.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, many more places. I'm not sure how long we'll still be like traveling from state to state. May go to one state and just still for a while.
Yeah, I think it's worth the experiment. See how it feels.
Yeah, because so many people say that they've done that, and they're like, "Yeah, that's not it. I'll go to one place and just explore that."
Absolutely, that's the beauty of the lifestyle.
Right, being able to know the ins and outs of a city, that's really cool. Because there are things in Texas that I had no idea were there that I really could be spending much time exploring.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been down to Texas in my van yet, but I'm always surprised at how much is there other than cities and hot flatness.
It's like Big Bend. They have sand dunes. I went to one park, Palo Duro State Park, which is beautiful. Had no idea that was there. We have the ocean. We have so many things there that I just have not taken time to explore.
Well, now you get the opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give to somebody who's considering leaving, a more standard job, or especially somebody who's looking to break out of the military or policing or something in that realm, and pursue something that's so opposite as far as our society makes them seem?
I would say do your own research. That is one thing that through my experience, what I've noticed is people refuse to do their own research. And when they do their own research, they look into things that make them feel good, things that make them feel better, things that aid in the story of them being able to escape a reality. And so from that, you don't tend to look at the actual reality of something. You look at how good it's going to make you feel, and that's all you see. So I say, like, do honest research and do what is best for you. Some people may have to, like I have a friend, and he's been traveling for years, and I never understood. He's like, yeah, like I'll go places and I'll just do odd end jobs. All I need is gas money.
Mm-hmm.
And money for food. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, but that works for him. I wouldn't want to do that. But when he knows the ins and outs of that, and he makes good money doing it, you know. And I would just say, do your research and really look into what would be a pro for you and what would be a con for you. What type of money do you want? What type of money do you need? And can you meet in the middle? For instance, I have a friend who lives in Honduras. He used to live in Houston, and he chose to move to Honduras. And he's such a minimalist. Like, he chooses to live off the land, like off grid. And he loves being closer to nature. And for the longest, I was like, man, you know, I want to do that. That's going to get me closer to my spirit. And then when I think about it, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to live off the land. I want to have certain things that work for me, and they don't work for him. So Instagram is not real. Instagram is a reality. It is a different dimension, and people can make it exactly what they want to make it. And so that is not to discourage anyone, but I would hate for anyone to look at my Instagram and be like, oh my gosh, you're living this beautiful life. But then when I tell you the reality of the different stories of things that I've encountered, okay to me, that is not me also being authentic. And so you have to remember that you're going to have great things and you're going to have things that are not so great. But if you only look for the great things, once you get into this lifestyle, reality will hit, and it's going to be like, damn, they didn't show this on Instagram. So my biggest recommendation is do what works for you and be honest about what works for you. Like, really be honest with yourself. And in the beginning, that is exactly what I was doing. My good fam had to sit me down and like, Candace, do what's best for you. Even when it came to my band build out, I'm like, no, but they have this sitting here and they have a shower here. And she's like, but do you need that? Is that important to you? And I'm like, no, it's really not. Because I wasn't doing what was best for me. I wasn't being authentic with myself. I was excited about escaping society, that societal norm. So no matter how much excitement there is, how much we really want to escape, we still have to be very honest with ourselves. Even when it comes to work, some people are able to survive off a very small amount of money. If you know that that is not your reality, if that is not going to work for you, then it's okay having a part-time job. Like, you don't have to completely quit your job if that does not work for you. Just because that works for other people, it's the path that you have to follow. You can make it work in other ways. You just have to do what's best for you. And that is my biggest point of advice. Do what is best for you. Because the more authentic you are with yourself, the more you manifest what works for your life and what your path and your life's journey, the better everything is going to turn out. Like me being able to, was in alignment with my journey. Your job is to figure out what is in alignment with your journey. It may in some way reflect mine. Mine in some way may reflect yours. But at the end of the day, If you don't do what's on your journey, you're going to bump into a lot of brick walls because it wasn't meant for you. So do what's meant for you. And that can be even greater than what I have or what anyone has, but it has to be out there for you.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important and very, very good advice, because Instagram is just like one aspect of it, but it's, 15 seconds of a story or, one shot on a camera, and it's not the reality.
People have to see the reality of it. If I just constantly post all these great pictures, it's like, yeah, that's nice, but what's happening in between time? And in between time, what happened was I was not taking care of myself. I was very caught up in this new reality, and I brought myself with me, which was a very tired ass person.
Yeah.
So yeah, people have to know that there is a reality behind this, all those pretty beautiful pictures on Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners that I have not asked you?
I think the only thing, and I think I touched on this, is just really being in tune with your life's purpose, your calling, and figuring out what that looks like for you. I think that is very, very serious, because there's so many people who are trying to live other people's lives or make their life reflect what another person's life looks like, and it makes them forget that their life is already beautiful, that they are already exactly where they're supposed to be. And I love when people say, I'm living vicariously through you. And they say that, and they're just like, I just love your pictures and your story. But when you see these things, you are living through me. Your subconscious mind has no idea whether this is reality, if this is truly happening to you, if you are actually physically there. It has no idea. So you have the opportunity to manifest anything that you want. Like my friends, when I got my van, they were so excited for me, but they also understand that when one of us in our circle, because our spirits are so strong, someone that close to you gets a blessing like that, they already know that theirs is on the way, because it's just coming from one vessel to the next vessel to the next vessel. So when you see these things that are getting closer to you, there's a van life in Houston, there's a van life in Atlanta. That means that what you're manifesting is getting closer to you, and to get excited about it and to be grateful. Like, I already know that this is what's on my path. I feel it. I accept it, and move forward in that, what's on your path. I think that's the biggest thing that I just wanted people to remember. Like, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Don't allow anyone else's journey to make you think that yours is less important or less beautiful, because you're still on the path of getting exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, I love that. And, personally, that's exactly what I needed to hear right now. So thank you.
Okay.
Candace, how can people come find you online if they want to follow along with your adventures?
So they can follow my Instagram. My blog is Candiss, that's Candy with 2 S's at the end, love.com. And that's where all of my travel updates, all of my free writing, all of my knowledge tips, healthcare tips, skin tips, all of that stuff is uploaded there.
Perfect. Well, I will link to both of those in the show notes. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And I can't wait to see where you go next.
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
All right. You get out there and you enjoy that dog beach.
Okay. So talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We've reached the end of this episode of Deliberate Living. You can find the show notes and everything we referenced over on my website, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, on YouTube, or sign up for email updates every time something new is published. I'll see you next time on Deliberate Living, and until then, keep your life on the DL too.